Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Believe TV, where we embrace the possible, where we oftentimes talk about the Believe performing arts experience, but we mainly focus on embracing the possible and that being our motto and all of that. My name is Bruce Sampson. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're joining us live, I want to let you know if it's your first time joining us that this is an interactive medium, so we encourage you guys to join in the conversation. You can always leave comments, ask questions, and whenever possible, we'll try to bring you into the conversation as well. Today, I am honored to have an incredibly talented individual that I am lucky enough to call friend with us. He was one of my very first guests on this program, and I'm so happy to have him back. And that is the incredible Mr. Kye Brackett.
Hello.
Hi, Kye.
Hello.
How are you, sir?
I'm lovely. I'm lovely. It's like
You are lovely.
it's morning time, and I'm having my chai.
Oh, okay. You're shy.
You don't drink coffee anymore, so.
Oh, okay. Is that a very new thing?
Yeah. Actually, it's I don't know what happened, but coffee just went away, so now I'm doing chai. So
Okay. That's awesome.
you know.
So where are you in the world right now?
I am in Los Angeles, and I am preparing to go to London this afternoon for the weekend. We're doing a show there for the BBC Proms, which is their like the end of the summer fling, or beginning of the fall hoo-ha celebration they do in Hyde Park in London. So that'll be Saturday. So we're leaving today. We'll arrive tomorrow, rehearse, then do the show.
And I'm assuming when you say we, you mean you're with Barry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. At the moment, I'm in Los Angeles.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
So a number of things I want to talk with you about today, and I don't know if you saw any of my past episodes where I talked about you inspiring me when you were just recently in New York. So can we first start with just why you were in New York and what was going on, and just explain to folks so that we kind of set the tone for the rest of it.
Well, as you mentioned, I sing with Barry Manilow, and I'm also the staging director person for him. And we were doing a month-long residency at the Lunt-Fontanne Theater on Broadway. And we went there like the middle of July. Is that right? Yeah, middle of July. And we stayed from the middle of July to the middle of August. And we did like 16 performances or something like that. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20 performances, something like that, which was very cool. And he is from Brooklyn, and so it was great for him to be back. I was born in New York, interestingly enough, so it was really kind of full circle for me too, to be back there and to be on Broadway. I kind of went to Broadway through a back door, you know what I mean? I didn't do it. I performed in New York, but when I was on Broadway, actually I was doing a pop venue, singing that way as opposed to in a show necessarily. But it was really awesome to be in that neighborhood and with that family of people in that community. It was really something I've always wanted to do, and I ended up doing it at this point in life. Who knew?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I was tuning in kind of daily because you were doing a Facebook Live post.
Yes.
Each day. Correct me anytime I'm wrong. But I started tuning in because, well, tell them about the stoop thing.
Okay. Yeah, I would come to work, and there was a stoop just outside where I worked, and I just found it kind of interesting to sit on the stoop and watch people go by when we had a break. And I started to notice like there were stoops everywhere. That's kind of there was stoop culture, interestingly enough. Like if you want to stop and talk or take a break, there's always somebody's stoop that you could sit outside. So I would do these broadcasts from whatever stoop I happen to be on. And I call them stoop stories, New York City stoop stories. And whatever show I was going to see, or I was just before a show or something, I just made that part of my journey. I chronicled it as stoop stories. And I even did things like a friend of mine, we went to eat and we got some street meat, and we were like, we were like, oh, where do we go? Let's go sit on a stoop. So we sat on a stoop and I did a broadcast from there, that was one of my favorite ones, because, we were just two dudes eating at 12:30 at night, on the street, just talking to people as they went by. But it was also fun because every new thing that hit me while being in the city, every new thing was just coming out of me, and to talk about the energy of everything was right there. So there was something that was really fun about sharing my life in that way. I hadn't really thought about that as being shareable necessarily until I was doing it. And then it was kind of like, oh, I got to tell my friends I'm doing this thing. It was better than taking pictures, actually. I was like,
yeah.
Let me give you one long picture. It was great fun. I'm glad you guys tuned in. That makes me happy.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And there were so many of your episodes that I just found inspirational, and just just really inspirational, and just helped me to kind of put some things in perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Like I loved, one of the things I loved the most about it was, from the very beginning, there was this childlike energy and innocence that you exuded as you were rediscovering, like as you were rediscovering New York, and allowing yourself to be like, let's see this with brand new eyes. So that was really, really cool for me. Like, what put you in that place? Do you know?
It was this idea that I don't know when I'm going to go back there, and this was just I can tell you actually what really happened was, I also had a friend that was coming to visit for 3 days while he was there, and while I was there. And I kept thinking, what should we do? We had limited time and we had to get right at it. So I was like, well, let me check out the city again. So I went to kind of re-look at the city, to check it out, to set the stage. So when my friend came, we could hit the ground running.
Yeah.
And I knew that because of the schedule that we had, it was easier for me than most of the times we've been there. We would work. We were off Monday, then we worked Tuesday and Wednesday, then we were off Thursday, then we worked Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then we're off Monday. Back, right? So we're off on 2 days, off on 3 days, and it kept going like that. So that means, and we did no day shows. So that means I was available for matinees on Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesday, and then available for night shows on Thursday, right? Or when was it? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah, on Thursday night I could see shows. So there was opportunities that I didn't have before to actually see shows, right? So I was like, well, go see them. And there were lots of shows. The city was very filled with so many things to do. I saw King Kong. Who would ever see that? But one of my friends was like, oh my God, I love the monkey. And I was like, if that's all she pulled out of it, I was kind of fascinated with what was the monkey about, and I saw the show that was, it was really great, but the puppetry on the gorilla was amazing. It was maybe 30 feet tall. It was, amazing. And the way they did that, they had like 12 people operating this thing.
Wow.
Just the fact that there were so many things that you could see there that you can't really see anywhere else. And I was very aware of the fact that I got to see them. I got to be there. And for me to not take advantage of that seemed like it was like God was doing me a favor. And I was like, no, I don't need to do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm gonna give you all this, but don't use it. What? No. So I decided I was going to paint that town red and learn things about New York, because a lot of times I go there and I'm trying to be all, oh no, darling, I don't really need to go there because all the regular people go there. No, we decided to do all the things that everybody. We took a walk in Central Park and we rode the bus with the thing open, and we rode down the Battery, and we went up to Harlem, and we went out to Brooklyn, and the culture of the city is just amazing. It's one of our oldest cities in the country, and the history that's existing juxtaposed with how new and vibrant and diverse it is, those two things coming together is really amazing. And the way it happens in that city is like no other in this country. It happens in places like Paris and London and that, but there's nothing like that energy, and to be a part of it, to be a part of what was making it be that energy was what was suddenly interesting. Like, I not only was part of like what was exciting for people coming in, but I was also excited by it. So that was kind of a new way of looking at it for me. So day and night, I was really enjoying and living in the city. I liked my neighborhood. I lived in Hell's Kitchen. And getting to know the people in my neighborhood, all the people in your neighborhood, and all the different restaurants. I must have gained 20 pounds because them dogs know how to feed you there. The music, there was like clubs and things that I hadn't gone to. I saw comedy while I was there. I saw straight plays. I saw musicals. And a lot of the New York history, that I never really paid attention to before, because I was either on the hustle when I was in New York, and didn't have money to do all those things, or I was on a different schedule and I was there auditioning and I was doing things. But this one was, I was working and I got to play while I was working, because we were there for a long enough time. I wasn't trying to squeeze everything into a weekend or anything. We had a good month to make that happen, and that was fantastic.
That's beautiful. It's interesting, something you said kind of struck with me also in watching you, was like, aside from the childlike energy and the exploration and all of that, was I often talk about just being blessed to have had the opportunity to travel around the world and and all of that, and that when I talk about it, I always try to explain that for me, I'm not traveling as a tourist, as a consumer. It's more, it is that, like, what I felt from you was what I feel like when I'm traveling. It's just like, I want to learn. There's so much here to absorb and to learn about people and, just all of it, and that's what I was feeling from you, whether you intended to exude that or not. That's what I was feeling, and just had me captivated.
It's also great to share that, to have that learning thing, and you recognize how much you know, or that you're learning something when you get to share or teach someone. So having this medium to share with people was just like very exciting for me, like, oh, and I wasn't sure who was watching, I was just kind of like,
right,
let me just put it out there, and at least I can go back and look and see what I did. And I was just living it, so hard. I never even looked back. I was just kind of excited to put it out there.
Yeah. So I'll mention one thing. Like, I think I told you earlier that earlier this year was my first time actually going to New York City. I'd never actually.
Oh, really?
Okay. And it was one of those things of like, you know what? I'm just gonna go, because basically all my travels were related to work or performing.
Right.
I mean, that took me places. I was never one of those people who said, I'm gonna go here one day, and so I'm gonna save up my money and plan it, and like I just didn't do it. I just wasn't one of those people, I guess.
Yeah.
So that was really the first time where I said, you know what? I should go. This is awful that I've never been to New York City. Like, how is that possible? And so I went. I called a couple of friends, and Stephanie Block was doing the Share Show, and I'd actually never seen her you know, as a professional, aside from when she was either in Young Americans or when she worked for me. And so, um, so I never actually seen her perform. So I was like, what better way for me to introduce myself to Broadway than to go see my old friend
On Broadway.
starring on Broadway? And she would eventually win a Tony for that as well, you know.
That very role, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So that was just crazy. But when you talk about the energy of the city,
yes,
like that was the thing for me. Like I had friends that wanted to take me and show me, you know, stuff and you know places and this and that.
like
And I'm like, yeah, I just want to be in the midst of it. You know, like I just want to be in the midst of the energy. And so, again, that was one of the things I was drawing from you, and that luckily, having been there earlier this year, I was able to like sit there going, you know, as I'm watching you, you know, like, yeah. And like when you mentioned street meat, like I didn't know, like the first time a friend mentioned that to me, like, let's go get some street meat. I'm like, what? I'm not sure I want that just based on the title. What is that? So can you explain for those who've never been there and don't understand?
Well, it's basically food that you get that is sold on the street. It's different than the food trucks necessarily, because a lot of these carts that they set them up on the street and they stay there. They don't drive around. They are, you know, posted up on the one that the halal people, this brand of cooking, where they have shawarmas and gyros, lamb meat and chicken and that kind of thing, and they make the wraps and stuff. So good. Quick little, you know, things.
So good.
So good. And they are set up all over town, and they just have different people rotate in and out. It's usually one person inside that's running the whole thing, and it's really kind of great because you don't have to go into a restaurant or whatever. They're just sitting there all day, and they're all over the place. And you walk in and I want a soda and a shawarma. Okay, great. And you know and you see all the pictures of what the sandwiches look like, so you're just mouth watering anyway. And they serve it on rice. They give you lamb and things like or chicken, and they can put it on rice or they can put it on a pita. And it's very satisfying, actually, you know. And some people get nervous because, you know, you get it off the street, but you know, New Yorkers kind of know those people are not trying to mess with you. They keep that clean and do it whatever, but they get it, you know. And it's very exciting, you know. And it's a little messy, but I'm not mad about that, you know. It's not good, you know?
Right. Exactly.
Napkin here.
Okay, so I want to go back to your stoop stories just for a second.
Yes.
And I want, and I may be putting you on the spot because I don't know if you will remember this particular one, because I don't remember which show it was you saw, but there was a particular show that when you came out, and I think you came out at intermission, and you were just really emotional.
Oh yeah, that was actually the end of the show. The intermission was exciting. Like I was like, wow, that's really cool. When I came out at the end of the show, though, I was moved. It was a whole other thing had happened to me. The show was called Hadestown, and I had heard a lot about it. And I was just like, oh, wow, it's supposed to be this, you know, it's the new thing, you know. And I saw the piece they did on the Tonys, and I wasn't really that impressed, but there was something about the scope of it that was cool, but the presentation didn't really inspire me that much. But I knew there was something to it. There had to be, because of the way people talked about it. And my other cast member who said, you know, she loved the monkey, she went before I did, and she was like, you need to go see this. So I was like, okay. And the great thing about being there, and because I was seeing all these things by myself, I could always get cheap tickets because I was just getting a single, and finding a single was always easy because somebody would turn one ticket in, or they had to fill out the row, and you know, they had this one ticket left. So that happened again. And I walked into the show, and it was a really interesting show about this guy who goes to hell to get his wife and comes back and all that. But it was the way they told the story that was so amazing. And it was a love story. And at the very end of it, the whole story started unfolding, and you know, it had one of those boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl kind of thing. And the very end of it, he lost her again, and that was kind of like, oh, and something charming and beautiful started happening in the theater. It was very sweet. But then they finished the show, and then they all came out and stood on the edge of the stage. There was like maybe 15 people in the show, and they just looked into the audience. And I felt myself getting more emotional, like watching them look at us. And they stood there for probably 30 seconds before they bowed. And that was one of the first times I ever realized, whoa, they didn't come out and, thank you. They actually came out and took in the people that were watching them. And they absorbed that. And I was so moved by that. Like, to be seen by the people on stage was a new experience in that way. And I felt myself, you know, getting tight in my chest and moved. And then they took their bow, and they were so sweet. And then while this applause was happening and everybody's standing up, this girl in the group starts singing this song. And it's basically a toast to all the people who, like the star of the show, have been to hell and back. And it was like, to us, basically, to all you. And it's like, and they started passing out drinks for themselves. You know, and they got these cups, and they poured the wine and everything. And then they all did this last toast. And then they said, good night at the end of it. And I went to pieces. I was like, the most beautiful feeling that I had ever had from a show, you know, more than just the story, but just this feeling. And then I got outside and realized how proud and happy I was to be part of making that feeling happen for other people. That's what I've always done. But I hadn't really had the real experience of what it was like to be in an audience and be moved like that, like people have been in many of the shows that I've done. Like when I did Rent, you know, people would come back after the show and tears just brimming in their eyes about how beautiful the story was, and they could barely speak, but they were so moved. And I loved the show, Rent, that is, but I hadn't really had that, this is a unique experience, I'm totally moved kind of experience myself until that. And I was both moved and proud of them, proud that this was the thing that I chose. I was happy about that in a way that I had never really tapped into, because I'm not a doctor. I'm not making millions of dollars. I'm not doing that. I am not curing cancer. But for 2 hours, I get to let people forget they have cancer. And there is a value to that. And there's something noble about that. That is what I experienced. The thing that made me proud was the nobility of those that choose to step into this thing that may be looked at as frivolous, but to offer people this experience of moving beyond their very human thing, to move beyond this seat that you paid for. You know, it elevated us all to a different place, much like people in sports do. If you're into sports, you know, they see somebody run this thing and they get so excited. You know, the same way these storytellers, you know, come into this room, and there's all these people in this dark room, and you take this journey together. And if it moves one of you, it moves all of you. And that experience is, it just should not be undervalued. And it was something that for me, I was like, wow, okay, this feeling is not something, I mean, I paid for the experience of having the feeling, but the feeling itself is something money can't buy. You know, like it's still with me, and it will not go anywhere unless I choose to forget the experience. But having it, everybody can't get it. Everybody doesn't have it. And it was deeply moving and inspiring. And I was embarrassed to like make that Stoop story, but I was also like, I can't not say anything about this, even though
Yeah.
I'm kind of a mess right now. That was what was embarrassing, was being seen in this vulnerable state. But I had to say it. You know what I mean?
Well,
It,
and that's the thing that was beautiful from my perspective, because I guess in a way you became that extension of I didn't get to share that with you in the moment and see exactly what you saw and all of that, but
yeah,
through your emotion and what you expressed, here I am all these miles away from you
mhm,
watching this, and I had tears in my eyes, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So like in a in a way it continued, you know what I mean? Like it just,
yeah,
you
yeah,
passed it on. And so I'm grateful that you did, especially because that whole thing about being vulnerable, you know,
mhm,
and you would think that as a performer, as a professional performer,
yeah.
you already get that. So even having that thought of like, I don't want to be seen vulnerable. Well, wait a minute, I do that all the time.
Right. If I'm making myself cry, that's one thing. But if you're making me cry with the experience, I can't show you that. You know, it was like, well,
Right.
be real, it's okay. You know, uh, and and to be honest, it was a beautiful salve as well. You know what I mean? Because
Hmm.
I can still feel it. You know, just talking about it right now and remembering it, I'm just. It was such a great feeling, and just standing there and being in that. Oh my God, it was just a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Um, and and it was just because I let myself have the experience, as opposed to talk myself out of it and say all the reasons why I couldn't have it. I couldn't afford it. I couldn't do this. Why bother? You know, if I wanted to, I could have it if I worked at it. And I did. You know, I set aside the money I needed to do it. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to have street meat tonight, but I'm going to see this thing today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it, we're worth it. You know, we don't often give ourselves pleasures like that because we don't feel like we're worth it. You know, you don't want to spend that kind of money on yourself. And that one was a great one. You know, I have spent money that I will never remember. I spent it on stuff I won't remember. But that money, I will
Hmm.
not forget. That's
Yeah.
money I won't forget.
Yeah. That was beautiful. Um, yeah. So I thank you so much for sharing those stories. And I wasn't at all expecting to get from it. You know, I thought it was just like, oh, let's see what Kye's doing, you know? And but
Right.
then what I got this unexpected treasure and gift. So
Mhm.
thank you. And ever
Well,
since then, it was one of those things where you're like, I just want to show everybody. Everyone needs to see this. Everyone needs to experience this, you know? And
well,
and and then going back to the thing about traveling, you know, is that um that's the feeling I always have too, is when I'm learning something new or experiencing something new or whatever, I'm like, I just want to share that, you know? It's like,
sure.
you know, it's one thing just for you, but it's like, no, 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 it's meant to be shared. And so anyway, so quick question. So
Yeah.
um did that experience change? Well, let me ask you this first. Did you have a performance that evening?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And
Yeah,
did it impact that performance at all?
absolutely. Absolutely. I was more I was present to the audience in a way I hadn't been before. Because it wasn't just me on Broadway. I was now part of the fabric of all the shows that people were coming to see in that neighborhood. Because there's an energy to that whole neighborhood around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and at eight, around 1:30. I say 1:30 to 2 o'clock, and then at the intermission, and then again that night at 8 o'clock, and then when they have the intermissions, and then after the show, there's just an amazing energy on the street because there's so many theaters right next to each other, and they all had their experiences of whatever it was, and they come out and they're all buzzing with it, and they are in their next adventure. They may be going home, getting a cab, or going out to eat, or whatever. But there's like this buzzing thing of all of them having had this cultural experience in this dark room with a bunch of strangers, right?
Right.
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 So now I was realizing this experience that I just had is going to happen again, but now I'm doing one as well, which is a whole different experience. But like them, we get to take people through an experience that they appreciate and that they get to be touched by. And I was just recognizing myself as part of that community and part of the fabric that gives rise to this enthusiasm and this joy. And it's this pinnacle of performance. And you know, you've been to Broadway. Did you ever go? You know, people always say that if you're going to succeed, or you're going to think, do you ever want to go to Broadway someday? That's the thing. And I was like, oh wait, I'm here.
Yeah.
You know, and realizing that this very simple thing that I do, in one sense, added something to a history that had been set before me of performers and people who lift the human spirit from whatever thing they bring into the theater. You know, I got to be part of that. And it was thrilling in a whole new way to put on the same clothes I put on, and put on the same makeup I put on, and go out there and be like, yeah, I got y'all. I got you. It was a very beautiful, new kind of knowing in that moment. That was really great, you know, because I always try and be present to the audience, but I had new information to sit in their space, you know, and it was nice. It was really nice.
That's awesome. Okay, well, when I first reached out to you, asked you, you know, when you're available to do the show and everything, and then you said, I said, give me a date and a time, and so you did. I didn't even think about, didn't register at first what the date was, right? And so, and we were going to be talking about New York, and so like this morning especially, it all like went, oh my gosh, this is crazy, you know, and so I think I would be remiss if I didn't bring up 9/11. And I think for most of us, you know, Americans especially, but I think around the world, as I've traveled and talked to people, like everyone kind of knows where they were and what they were doing when they found out, or when that moment happened. So I'm just going to ask you, you know, do you remember where you were?
Absolutely. I was doing a show in Chicago with Barry. It was called Could It Be Magic? And it was a 5-person show that he...
Which is my favorite song, by the way.
Oh, yeah. You love the version of the song we did, too. It was kind of like a Prince version of it. It was awesome. But it was 5 of us doing this show. It was us doing hip-hop, gospel, jazz, R&B versions of Barry Manilow music. So and we had like me, an Asian dude, 2 black women, and a Latin girl. So there were no white faces in the show, simply because he wanted to kind of take his face off of his music and kind of give it to a different culture and say, y'all work that out. Younger people, multi-ethnic, that kind of thing. So we were doing it at a theater there, and we were going in that day to have a sound check because the sound wasn't really great. And so I was staying in an apartment that they put me in that was next to the John Hancock building, which is another tall building. And I turned on the TV. I was talking to my mom, and I saw this thing like a plane had run into one of these buildings or something. And it said the World Trade Center, but they also have a World Trade Center in Long Beach. And I thought it must be that one, because I couldn't imagine New York World Trade Center.
Right.
It couldn't be that. And so I'm, you know, watching it with the sound down and trying to figure out what I was looking at, you know. And the more I looked at it, the more strange. I mean, I was like, wait, that's the World Trade Center. And then I saw the second plane go into the building, and then I was like, whoa, this is happening. And then I started like freaking out, like, oh wait, this is happening. A thing is happening, you know. And it was silent where we were, but I didn't know how much longer, because we were in the shadow of the John Hancock building. I didn't know, you know, they could have been knocking every big building down. You know, I didn't. And then we were talking about the fact that this other plane had landed in this field, and the other one had gone to the Pentagon. So I was nerve-wracked. And then and I was out of town. I wasn't even at home. I was in Chicago, right?
Right.
And there was one other guy, two other people that were from out of town, me and this one girl and one guy that were in the show. And suddenly it was like, okay, where do we go? What do we need to do? So we had to go to the theater anyway. So we packed a bag just in case things went really left. And we took a cab or something and went to the theater. And while we were there, we had to do the sound check anyway. So the guy just put the microphones on each one of us and told us one at a time to just go sing something. And everybody that was there with the family, they came with their families.
Oh, wow.
I had a friend that lived in town, and I knew he didn't have family there, so I told him to come with us because I didn't want him to be by himself.
Yeah, yeah.
We went, and so we were all in the theater, and they asked us to sing, and each one of us ended up purging this sadness and this thing that was happening for us during this rehearsal. It was like that we were giving it up to nobody because it was just, you know, us in the theater. And
right.
It was so healing to have that space. It was like a kind of church, you know, like an inspiring space that you go to for comfort, you know, and we were with people that were giving that, providing that comfort in that space, and, you know, safety and all of that. It was a very interesting experience. And it was a blessing in another way, like I was describing how it felt to come out of Hadestown and feel like proud that I had done that. This was the first time that I really understood what it was like and what my purpose being a performer was, because all the things that when people come into a theater, they all have their different problems, right? And you kind of want to forget that. This is the first time in my life that when people came into the theater, when they finally started coming back into the theater, everybody had the same problem.
Right. Yeah.
So every song that was about strength or adversity or hurt or whatever, or New York, took on a whole different meaning than it did before. You know, like New York City Rhythm felt completely different. I Made It Rain felt completely different, you know, because, whoa, I didn't, you know, Somewhere Down the Road, all these songs just really hit me, you know, and even Daybreak, you know. And so one of the things that was interesting to me was realizing, that's the thing I said before, like, oh, I don't want to go to work either. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a fireman, I'm not a thing, but somebody needs to make these people feel better.
Right.
That's my job.
Wow.
When this all goes down and everybody's crying and upset and all of that, somebody needs to be able to jump up and sing a song and do a thing and, you know, inspire people to and remind them that, you know, this is us living the human story. We got this. I had to do it. It was my job. That was my thing. And that was like the first time that I ever really got, in a very real sense, what this meant to choose this life, to choose this profession. I really got it because it was the first time I was called to arms, you know.
Wow.
And it was because I think they fell on Tuesday. Was it Monday or Tuesday?
I want to say Tuesday, but I'm not positive.
I'm going to Tuesday as well. And the theaters didn't open until Thursday, right? And they we had they were doing this thing like Broadway. We were kind of taking our cue from Broadway, and they shut down Broadway for a few days, and then they decided, screw it, let's live. Let's not let them take our joy. And opening the theaters was the ultimate kind of fight back thing. We're going to go back and we're going to enjoy, you know, being in theater. We're going to, you know, that. we're gonna take it back. We're gonna take back our joy and our love and all of that. And then they would sing "God Bless America" at the end of the show. Well, we were doing this show by Barry Manilow Music, so Barry decided to do one of his songs, which was called "Let Freedom Ring," and it started out where we sang "My Country 'Tis of Thee," and then at the very end of it is "From every mountainside," and then it would, where "Let Freedom Ring" would go there, it would start the song "Let Freedom Ring," which is a different, like the last words of that song became the first words of this new song. Let Freedom Ring.
Okay.
And they had me make a speech before it, and I didn't know what I was going to say, but I came out and I was like looking at these people, and I was like, this is a moment where our job is to remind you that we're all part of the same great story and that we're great people, and this too shall pass. And then they started singing this song, and we're all like kind of crying, but we have to be physically capable while being emotionally available.
Right.
That
right.
thing. And there was just 5 of us trying to hold this whole thing down, and the thing that everybody was going through in the audience, we were going through too. Like,
yeah.
I'm an American. I watch TV just like you did. The difference is when you went someplace to feel better and to be communing with others and all that, and have somebody take your mind off it, my job was to take your mind off it for 2 hours and do that. And I can't cry about it. I can't show any, not weakness, but I have to buck up and make this happen. If I'm going to cry, I need to cry at 10:30. Not from 8 to 10:30. I'm all about you, and that was so, it was terrible, but it was also a moment that I felt blessed about, strangely, because I got that moment of recognizing that it wasn't just about, yay, it wasn't about just about that. It wasn't about look at me, really. There was a service that I got to provide.
Right.
And I hadn't really thought of it in that way. This service that I provide to mankind and humanity by letting myself be open in this way and sharing with them my feelings and sharing with them my perspective, or giving them an opportunity to sit back and let me soothe them through my storytelling or my sharing. It was terrible and beautiful in many ways.
Wow.
Remember that.
Thank you for sharing that. That means a lot. Often when I'm doing, my performing arts camps and workshops with kids, one of the things that I usually remind them before they do their performance is that you have a job to do now. Like, as a performer, you have an obligation. And what I always tell them, and so this is actually the first time I've ever heard someone kind of articulate something similar, that I've always felt, is that when you're on that stage, there's someone out there who needs you. There's someone out there that's waiting to connect with you and what you're going to give. And so it's your job to give them all of you, to do that. So, so thank you for sharing that. I just want to let you know, I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but our friend Cassie Miller says, "Hi, boys."
The grandest doll ever. I love
her beautiful, talented self.
Yeah, she really is. Sweet, beautiful woman. I love her. I wrote a song for her.
You did?
Yes, I did. It was called "Night is the Night," and it was about it was like an opening song. It was this thing, what a beautiful night. The air is fine. I am yours and you are mine. So let's make the best of what this night has in store. You look divine, and of course, so do I. You got me high as a kite, and I think I know why. Good music, good friends. Who could ask for anything more? It was that.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And the chorus
like
was, because tonight is the night. It's for us, you and me, and I can't fight this feeling that tomorrow will be another night like tonight. And I know when it's over, we'll look back on this night and be glad that we shared it together.
Wow. That's awesome. That's beautiful.
Just sweet.
Oh, wait, you're also getting a hello from, I don't think you know her, but I do. Karen Zenthofer from Germany. So
Oh,
hi.
Grüß Gott.
Wait, what did you say?
Grüß Gott. Hello.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's cool. Thank you so much for watching, Karen. So I'm gonna kind of bring this back to the performing and Broadway and stuff like that, by making the connection of, I posted this earlier on my Facebook that earlier this year, a friend gifted me with tickets to go see Come From Away.
Oh, I bet that was it.
Have you seen that?
No, I didn't see that one.
Oh, okay. I didn't know what the show was about.
Oh, right. Yes.
No, I knew nothing about it. The only thing I kind of grasped from it was online I saw like a picture, and it looked like people were in these seats that kind of resembled being on a plane.
Yes.
So I figured, oh, this has something to do with a plane, but I don't know. And I was just like, I was in one of those moods where I'm like, you know what? I don't need to know. I'm just going to go, and I'm just going to let it be what it's going to be. Yeah. And oh my goodness, like the journey and the discovery and yeah, I had the tears just streaming down. Had no idea what I was in for at all. And they're doing a really cool thing this week. This is actually, I'm going to mess up the name if I don't look and see. Yeah, it's National Arts and Education Week this week as well. So Come From Away is doing a really cool thing where if you go to their site, they have these different things that we can do because and I don't want to give it away, but the story ties into 9/11.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's basically about, all the planes that were in the air had to land. They had to land somewhere, know, and everyone's in a panic and trying to figure out like who is good and who's not, and all, and all that stuff, just the madness that was going on. And so this story is an incredible journey that takes us through that fear and all that madness back to the place of, oh wait, we're still all connected and we're still all
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they're doing this really cool thing where each day they're suggesting different things you can do, like an act of kindness on this day and a blah 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 on this day to reflect this week as it stems from 9/11 and as it relates to their show. So I put a link on my Facebook page to say, go check this out, because even if you haven't seen the show, go check this out. It's amazing, and it's a true story.
Yeah, it's easy enough to get into that, because without me knowing about it, somebody did like a one sentence blurb about it, and because I lived through it to some degree, I could understand that. In fact, one of my good friends was somebody I met during 9/11. He got stranded in Chicago. He was on his way back to Denver or whatever, and I ran into him because he couldn't fly anywhere, so he was stuck there. And so we hung out, and his hotel was like kicking him out or something, and I had this place that they had given me, so I kind of took in this stranger, Wow. And one of the things that I remember about that time was how much simpler it was to believe in another person. There was so little suspicion there because, I could feel how we were all going through it together. So I was much more open to people without knowing them in ways that I had not experienced before either. Because it was the first time that being American was more important than anything else. Like me, usually I'm a man and I'm black, but more than that, I was an American man who was a male and black and all of that. American was the tie-in for everything. And I remember going, our theater was near what they call Boys Town in Chicago. And, usually they have the rainbow flags and everything out, but all the rainbow flags had the American flag over them, like above them. And
Okay.
usually the defining thing of that neighborhood was gay culture. But suddenly, even in that neighborhood, the defining thing was being an American.
Hmm.
And it was rare that we all choose American first because we have the freedom not to. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Suddenly it was like, oh, no, I'm American. And not like, you know, be afraid or anything. It was like, no, it was kind of reminding us, you know, like we're going through this together. This is, you know, the patriotism was really high in a way that was really kind of also beautiful to see, because I hadn't seen much of that in my life either. Because there's usually like some other dividing thing, like civil rights. You know, there are people who felt American and some people who didn't, and there was the in and the out and all of that. But suddenly, everybody here was going through the same thing, you know.
Yeah.
And being American was a very important thing during that time when there was nothing in the sky. That Come From Away was interesting because I remember that. I don't even think about it now, but it was ridiculously silent because there was nothing in the air. And I didn't know that I would miss that until it was gone. And I was like, wow, there's nothing in the air at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a strange thing.
I remember I was actually on my, well, when the first plane hit, I was on my way to Pasadena. That's back when I was working for Yahoo. And when I got to Pasadena is when I watched the second one hit. I was actually listening to a sports talk show on my way to work, and the host mentioned it, but obviously he wasn't watching TV. So like either someone handed him a note or something saying a plane hit the World Trade Center, and the way he described it, he gave the impression, he had the impression, and he gave me the impression that it was like a little prop plane, you know, like it was something like that. It was like some weird accident, and like, oh my gosh, how did the guy, you know, hit a big building like that? That's crazy. And so I'm going about my business, not thinking anything alarming about it until I arrive at work. And as I walk into my office, there are these, in the lobby areas you're walking through it, there's these two big you know, like, I don't know, plasma screens, but you know, two big screen TVs, and they're on, and you see it, and then there's a group of people, you know, all gathered around watching it, and I'm like, wait, and so it's slowly starting to hit me.
Yes,
this is bigger than I thought this was.
Yeah.
And then we see the other plane hit, and so everyone in that room in that moment, there was that, I don't know, just the realization that we all got in that moment that like life will never be the same.
Yes, it has now changed. Yeah,
it is now changed. Our universe, we don't know what yet, but it's now changed.
Everybody had a question. Nobody had answers. You know.
Right. But we were all together. You know what I mean? There was no, even if I normally didn't like that guy and we didn't normally speak or whatever it was like, no, we are.
I got you.
I got you. Yeah, absolutely.
Anything you need to say or whatever is like, and human touch was suddenly acceptable. Because if somebody was feeling scared or whatever, if I was by them, I didn't worry about what they thought. I gave them my hand. I, you know, consoled them, whatever that was. I didn't have that fear of people that I normally have, or worry about, you know, what they're going to think and don't touch me. No, I knew better. You know, we are going through a thing and I want to be there for you. And people want to be there for me. You know, it was something, you know, interestingly enough, a friend of mine got pregnant right after this, right around this time. And she was very excited to have a son. So I ended up, she lives in Australia, and I ended up writing a letter to her son, her unborn son, to be opened on his 18th birthday, which is this Friday.
Wow.
And so I was writing to him about his parents, which I was telling him something about his parents that he probably wouldn't know, because they don't have a need to tell him and nobody else is going to tell him about what happened, what was going on before he was born. So I was giving him a little time capsule of what the world was like. And I was telling him this horrible thing has just happened, and your mom and dad, his dad is American, his mom's Australian, and how different the world felt and than it did before that. And like just kind of describing the world that he was coming into, that he's now lived 18 years in. And there's this guy from another country that he's never met telling him about his parents. And like, I hope I get to meet you, and your parents they love you so much, and they all of that, which is going to be exciting. I never, you know, I was like, will I still be alive? I don't even know, you know, but you know how 18 years can go.
Yes.
Yes. Pat, I was like, wow. And she said, yes, it's happening, you know, this year. And we kind of joked about it. And then it was like, no, it's happening September 14th. I was like, what? Okay, wow. That thing is happening.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, so let's bring it to something a little lighter to close things out. Well, we just have a couple minutes left. And I do want to thank you again for taking the time to come on and share all of this with me and with everyone else. So back to the National Arts and Education Week. Yes. I was going to share this one little thing. And I don't know if you can see this, but it says the true purpose of arts education is not necessarily to create more professional dancers or artists. It's to create more complete human beings who are critical thinkers, who have curious minds, who can lead productive lives. Mm-hmm. And it's by someone named Kelly Pollock. I stole that off of someone's Facebook page. Oh, I saw it. Oh, that's really cool. I'm just curious to say what you think about well, this, or just in general, you know, the purpose of arts and arts education. Because as we both know, you know, since the time when we were in school, a lot of schools have just, you know, taken arts out completely from schools and stuff. And so, what are your thoughts on the purpose of arts education?
The very nature of our job is to reflect humanity back to itself. And that's one of the things that when I was talking about when 9/11 happened, it gave me an opportunity to really check into that in a very real way. And the things that happen in the world, we might hear about, like Come From Away, for instance, or Hamilton, but Come From Away, since you mentioned that, that's a thing that actually happened. It's a musicalized version of this thing that happened, but the human experience that is underneath it is part of what binds us, is us having these feelings together. And this medium, that particular medium, theater, is a very special one, but all of them tend to allow us to see what life was like at that time, at the time of the person who created it, and then also the time of the people that they're talking about. You know, like Hamilton, you know, that's a time capsule of, you know, the people that created this in 2016, as well as the people in, you know, the earlier years, the 1700s and 1800s, you know, that what they were going through. And the ability to remember it and really embrace it. Like a lot of times it's a lot of facts and figures but the arts gives us different ways for impressions to be made on us that we can really hang on to. Like the songs that we hear, the images that we see. And when we have images that we share as a culture, like you can look at the picture of George Washington in the boat, you know, going across, you know, that's an image of a moment that may or may not have actually happened looking like that, but it is representative of a time and a moment in time. And when we look at that, it kind of gives us a thing of America in one snapshot, you know, of that particular time. And we all get to draw back on that, because once it's created, that peace becomes part of our culture. We share that image, and we share those songs, and we share the different stories. And, you know, there are so many different cuts on the same stories that we don't have to have one of them be the absolute be all tell all. Everybody's expression of it, that's what's important, is the different versions of the feelings that showed up, so that we get to feel what it's like to be human, not just know what it's about being human. It's feeling that. And sometimes we forget what that feels like because we get so caught up in the doing humanness that we forget what it's like to be human. These feelings that of vulnerability, which is where we connect most greatly, those are very important things. Like, you know, when we're crying, that's always an interesting moment. You know somebody's vulnerable, but that's when you know you can get in as well. And that thing is profoundly important. And it's not, which is not to, you know, poo-poo science and mathematics, but that's something that science and mathematics can't do. It can't touch that place. It can give you an absolute context for something that happened, like architects and mathematicians built the theater. But what happens inside that, they didn't have nothing to do with. You know what I mean? All the stuff that happens. So I value that, but ultimately they built the theater for another kind of experience, and movie theaters and those kind of things. They built those for another kind of experience to show up, museums and all that. That's why when they, you know, when the Third Reich was taking over Germany, that's one of the things that they did first. They tore down all the theaters, they took all the art, because that's what's left behind. You know, that's really what tells you what the culture was like. And people would say, you know, if you, if somebody was to come from outer space, you know, tomorrow, and they wanted to know about this planet, you would mostly take them to see the art and those cultural things. Those tell you so much about the people that existed before. And granted, the architecture and all of that speaks to that. That's great. But I find it disappointing that arts tends to not be valued as much as some other things, when in truth, every time you turn on the TV, you're not looking to see a mathematician or a historian. When you turn on the radio, you're not turning it on to watch them talk about language. You're looking for some kind of musical or some kind of story to be told. And artists do that. There are, you know, hundreds of thousands of people who go into making that, and yet we don't necessarily get funded to learn how to do that. We have to fight to do that all the time.
Right.
We're by ourselves. You know, sports will get a crap ton of money to play, but, you know, the show choirs in schools, they have to really fight and sell their own things and get their own uniforms and all of that. And they do it. They make it happen. Why? Because people come to see that. They're inspired by that too, you know, not to the same degree, you know, universally or, you know, in states, but there's a value to, you know, the arts and the education of arts, and because it's really us in many ways learning our human history and teaching people how to express our human history, whatever it is, whether we're American or European or African or whatever. That's the stuff that we pass down, that art, the art of being human.
Yeah.
You know?
That's awesome. Man, thank you so much.
Sure.
Like I said, I learn every time I have a chance to talk to you. So thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
So you said you're leaving tonight for London, right?
Yes, I am. I'm going to go see Corky right now, our mutual friend Corky Lee. And then get my luggage because it's broken and I had to get it fixed.
Yep.
And then run back here, pack, and run to the airport.
Right. We'll give Corky my love. Give him a hug for me, if you don't mind. Yes. And safe travels. Thanks. And we'll talk to you soon. And maybe we'll get some stoops from London.
I'm thinking about it. It might just happen today. Who knows?
All right, my friend.
Right.
Much love to you.
You as well.
Travels, live long and prosper.
Likewise.